demo of Armada to teach you how to play. Hopefully you liked the video. Hopefully it's informative. Thanks for watching.
So the first thing we're going to look at is the ship card here, and there's a whole lot of information on here, and I'm going to go through it pretty quickly, and we'll reference each part as it comes down to it in gameplay. First, here's your hull value, 8 hull on this particular Star Destroyer. This second value is your anti-squadron value. So if you're attacking a squadron, this is what type of dice you roll. Here is our command value, our squadron value, and our engineering value. Those are important, and we'll get to those as the gameplay gets to it. Here are the different types of defense tokens we have, and we're going to lay those out once we set up. The defense tokens are different defensive actions we can do. Right here, this outlines the type of how much shields we have on each different section, and here's how many of attack we have. So for our rear arc, we can only shoot 2 red dice. Out of our side arcs, we can do 2 red and a blue on each side, and on the front, we can do 3 red and 3 blue. So our forward firepower is the most important. Down here, we have all the different upgrades that we can take, and then we have our point cost. This is 85 points, and here is our speed. Now, this is very important. Our speed corresponds to this ruler. So this basically means if we're going up, if we're at speed 1, we can turn the tick 1 time, and that means boom, like that, from center, because you always start with it completely straight. This means if we're going speed 2, we cannot turn the first one at all, but the second one we could turn 1. So the first one we couldn't turn, but the second one we could turn. All right, so that's the setup card. Now the other things that we have that we're going to get is our command dials, and these are basically different commands that we can set. And there's an engineering action, there's a focus firepower action, there's a squadron action, and there's a navigation action, and each of those are going to do different things as they come up. In short, navigation lets you change your speed and also change your yaw 1 more tick on the maneuver dial, or on the movement on this thing. Engineering gets you gain points equal to your engineering value and potentially recover shields or repair hull damage from that. The higher your engineering value, in this case he's 4, so he can recover up to 2 shields. And for every different engineering task you do costs points. Focus firepower lets you roll 1 extra die of any type that you're rolling for a single attack. And the squadron action lets you activate squadrons that are near you within range 1 or 2 up to your squadron value. So if I did a squadron action with this guy, because my squadron value is 3, that means I could activate 3 different TIE fighter squadrons. And so that's pretty good. And now my command value is 3 here, so that means I will actually have to set 3 of these dials, and I'll stack them on top of each other. And at the start of each turn, I'll flip the top one up, and and then I'll be able to resolve that. And there's a certain order to doing these. Engineering you have to do right away. Squadron you have to do right away. Focus firepower you do when you're shooting, and you shoot before you move. And then navigation you would do last when you're navigating. Now, one of the things you can do is if say navigation comes up and you don't want it, you can spend the token and take a navigation token, and you put that on you, and that stays forever until you use it. Now, tokens are kind of like you cashing in and doing it later, but they're not quite as powerful. So this navigation lets you change your speed and your yaw, so like 1 extra tick also. But a navigation just lets you change your speed if you do a token. A squadron action just lets you activate 1 squadron instead of all 3. The firepower lets you re-roll 1 die instead of being able to add a whole die. And then the engineering, instead of giving you your engineering value in points, it gives you half of your engineering value rounded up if you take the token. And there's a token for every action. The rules are you can only have 1 of each type, and you can only have a number of tokens equal to your command value. So this guy can stockpile 3 tokens of different types. Okay, so when we're setting up, I'm going to lay my cards down here by the side, and then I'm going to look at his defensive tokens. So he's got a brace, and then he's got 2 redirects. and I'll set these right next to him, and I can spend those whenever I'm attacked. I can spend one per attack, and what will happen is once I'm attacked, if I want to spend one of these, I'll flip it over, and then it'll become red. And then at the at the start of each turn, then we'll flip all the spent ones back over. But once it's red, I can spend it again, but then it's discarded for the entire game. So you have to kind of manage how many of these you're going to spend. And with only the core set, you don't have that many ships shooting at you, so it's not that big of a deal. So I'll set those next to him. So we're also going to look here at the Squadron cards. They're a little different than the ship cards. For one, you'll notice they're standard card size, whereas the ships are significantly larger. The TIE Fighter Squadron, for example, here has a movement of 4, a hull of 3, an anti-squadron of 3 blue dice, and an anti-ship of 1 blue dice. It's important to note here that any capital starship, whether it's the Corvette, the frigate, or the Star Destroyer, are considered ships. Any of the squadrons are not considered ships. They're only called squadrons. So basically these are squadrons. Anything with a round base. And X-Wing's got a movement of 3, hull of 5, 4 dice for anti-squadron, and a red die for anti-ship. And they have certain keywords on there that we'll get into when it that aren't really important for this game, but the TIE Swarm, they can, when attacking a squadron that's engaged with another squadron, you may re-roll a die, so you get re-rolls for attacking together. The X-Wings have a bomber ability that allows them to crit against starships, and that's important because normally squadrons ignore crits. So, okay. And one of the things when you're setting up, the dials here are really cool. So after somebody's activated, you'll switch their size from red to blue, right? And this token here marks their life, so you don't have to stack anything next to the squadron. This TIE Fighter currently have 3 health. If he gets hit once, I'll rotate him. If he gets hit again, I'll rotate him, and if he's dead, then I'll take him off the board. So we use that to mark that. And after he's activated, we switch him to the other side. And after everybody's activated, we'll flip the initiative token over, and it'll to the red side. And I'll explain that later, but that's going to mean that all red ships now activate for the following turn. And then after he activates, we'll flip him, and that'll indicate that he's already activated. And so it's a very clever way to do it. So when you're getting ready, you want to make sure all of your ships are up to full strength. You also have to go around to all of your large base ships, your actual ships, and make sure that their dial here is set to their maximum shield value, which is on the card, but it's also on the base here, and this one is 3. So his forward should be at 3, side should be at 3, other side should be at 3, and his rear should be at 1. And you want to do this for all of your ships as part of just setup. Now we're going to get into deployment, and when you deploy, you're also going to set a speed. And now this is a speed token, and these basically represent 1, 2, 3, 4, and they even have a 0 because you can come to a full stop. When you deploy, you pick one of the speeds that your ship can do, and you set it to that. So as a Star Destroyer, I can deploy at 1 or 2. The Corvette can go up to speed 4, for example, so I can start him at 4 if I wanted to. Now, I will use the range ruler to deploy, and if you notice, it has 2 different sides. This is the firing arc for ships, and this is basically the side for squadrons. This one represents range 1 for squadrons. They can only shoot at range 1, which is much shorter than range 1 for ships. But this is also their movement template. They can only move straight, but you can move them any which way you want. But this is what we use for deployment. We go up to range 3 for deployment. So in theory, I could deploy this guy all the way out as far as here. But you go with initiative, so we'll assume the rebel player has initiative here, like they do in the starting tutorial. The first things he'll have to do is deploy one of his ships. And he'll set his speed to 2, and then he just deployed a frigate. You can also deploy a squadron at this point, but a squadron has to be at range 1 to 2 of a ship. So you can't deploy a squadron first. and it'll come back to me. I will then deploy. And I'm behind range 3 there, so I'll deploy about right there, on a little bit of an angle. And then it'll go back to the rebel player. I'll deploy 2 X-Wing squadrons. And we'll make sure that they're within range 1 or 2, and they are. Then the Imperial player will deploy 2 TIE fighters. And then the rebel player will deploy another ship, and he sets him to 4, so this Corvette is going to be at speed 4. And the Imperial player will deploy 2 more TIE fighters. And the rebel player will deploy his last 2 X-Wings. And then the Imperial player will deploy his last 2 TIE fighters. Alright. So, now it doesn't matter which way these are facing, they're considered to be able to shoot in all directions for the squadrons. They don't have arcs of fire. Only the actual ships have arcs of fire. Another thing we have is these little tokens here. This is a 1, a 2, a 3, and so on and so forth. And these are counters because the game has exactly 6 turns. So at the end of the 6th turn, you'll add up, destroyed points, and that'll how you determine the winner. There are also objective cards that can spice up gameplay a little bit, and they add some flavor there. But as far as just a general teaching game, we're just going to go with a generic battle. This is our token that we flip over for what phase we're on, right? So what is that actually? It's actually called the initiative token. And so when it's, for example, the first turn it'll be blue, and all of our squadrons will have the blue side out. And so once I move him, I'll activate him. And then once they're all red, that means it's the end of the turn. This will flip over, and then we know, who has activated and who hasn't. All right. So now this basically we'll go back and forth. The rebel player can choose to do something first. At the beginning of the turn, first thing we do is we set our command tiles. And if it's the first turn, like for example, the Star Destroyer has a command of 3, I'll have to set all 3 of them. So I'll know what I'm going to do first turn. But beyond that, I have to basically plan 3 turns ahead. And then we stack them on top of each other. Now the Corvette only has 1, so he has the advantage of just planning 1. The Nebulon has 2, so he gets to plan both of these. Okay, and there we go. Okay, so he's planned. He thinks he knows what he's going to do. So the rebel player will activate the Corvette first. Now the Corvette, first thing he does is flip this over, and he's taking a firepower. Now, he knows he's not going to be on shooting range this turn, so he's going to immediately spend this to get a firepower token, which he'll place on his card. And now, at a speed of 4, I'll let you see Corvette's movement here. So this basically means he can't do the first tick, but he can do the second and third tick, 1 tick each, and then for the 4th speed he can do 2 ticks. So I can't turn this one, but I can turn this one, and this one, and this one 2 times. So I could do a pretty significant turn if I wanted to. So I'll set this down. I line it up right in between here, and this is, if you see it, it only goes in one way. And I have to go, I can't opt to go less, so I can go there. And you're allowed to pre-measure in this game. One thing I can't do, however, is to go right here, like this. Because it has to stay on the same side. So if I line it up on this side has to be lined up on the same side. The reason I can't do that is because my ship overlaps the token. So you always have to not be overlapping the token. Now I could try that. But let's try this. Right there. Alright. Now I don't have to click it 2 times. I can click it, I can click it a maximum of 2 times on the 4th one. Alright. So let me put this back. so actually the first step he would do is shooting, but there was nothing that he could shoot, and this is, you know, our range. So he moved all the way out, and he's done. Actually, the first thing he did was flip over his dial, then shooting, then movement, and now he's done. He yields to the Imperial player, who will flip over, and he represents an engineering action. And I don't need to repair any shields right now, so I'll take the token. And then I set this on my ship, indicating that I've already activated my ship. Now, the first thing I would do is shoot, and I don't think I have anything in range, which I don't. So now I can shoot. My speed is 2, so I have some options. I definitely want to be able to shoot this guy next turn. And so I know I'm going 1 or 2, but I can go that way a little bit, or that way a little bit. I think I'm going to go this way a little bit. Okay, and that fits right in there. It fits nice and snug. And that's going to end his turn. And now I'll go to the Rebel player, the Nebula. Now, I haven't forgotten about the Squadrons. Squadrons activate after all of the regular ships have activated. That's why a Squadron action is so important. So, the Nebula B flips over his dial and he reveals a Squadron action. So before he goes, he can make a Squadron activate and move, which is nice because it gets to do both. If you wait until the end of the turn, Squadrons only get to attack or move, not both. But only through a Squadron action can you make Squadrons both attack and move at the same time. And you can do it in either order, so it's very nice. But I don't think he wants to do that just yet. He's going to take the Squadron token. And he has nothing in line of sight to shoot, so he is going to move. And he set his speed to 2, and he can click 1 each on there. Let's go this way. No, let's go straight on that one. You are allowed to pre-measure with this game, but one thing you cannot do is you can't triangulate. So I wouldn't be able to pre-measure a movement and then say, all right, once I get there, where will I be? You can't use 2 things. You can only pre-measure the one tool you're using. So if you're testing firing arc, you can do that. If you're testing movement, you can do that, but you couldn't test both at the same time. Alright, so he's going to be done. We'll yield back to the Imperial player now. All ships have moved, so now we're going to activate Squadrons. We do this 2 at a time. So I am actually going to start with these 2 TIE Fighter Squadrons over here. They have a movement of 4, so I will make sure I'm on the Squadron side, which is the one that goes up to 5. And I'll just put it up to 1 edge. And then move it up to, but not exceeding the 4 barrier. And I'll flip his thing over to the red side, indicating that he's gone. Now this guy will go, also he'll do a 4. And he's going to go that way. Now it's the Rebel player's turn. The X-Wings only have 3 movement. I'll take this guy and move him only about halfway, not fully. Activate him, and then he'll take this guy as well. And move him a little bit less. Leave a little distance there. An important thing about Squadrons is locking up. You can, like one TIE fighter could lock up all of these X-Wings. And that's very strategic, and we're going to see that next turn. So I'll explain when that happens. Okay. This TIE fighter will go this way. Go back to the Imperial side. He gets to pick 2 TIE fighters and activate them. This guy will go out that way. And then this guy's going to go right here. And this guy's going to support him. So we're splitting off our X-Wings 2 that way and 2 this way. And then the light goes back to the Imperial player. He'll go straight right there. And this guy will go about right there. Okay, so we got them pretty close together. Now all the squadrons are red, so they've all activated. I'll take my number 1 off of the top, and then we're now on round 2, and we'll flip the initiative token over to the red side. Rebel player still has initiative. He'll have initiative the entire game, so he still gets to go first. We are on the red phase now, indicating all of our squadrons who are red will activate. And then once they're flipped to blue, that means they're done. So the first thing we're going to do is set our dials. And then once you set them, you put them on the bottom of the stack. So then the Star Destroyer has to plan 3 turns ahead. The Nebulon has to plan 2 turns ahead. And the Corvette just gets to pick whatever he wants to do now. So that's nice. Alright, so now some interesting things are going to happen. The Rebel player is going to activate the Corvette first. Now he's within firing range. But the first thing he's going to do is flip over. He's got a focus fire again. So now he has a focus fire token and a focus fire command dial. The interesting thing about both of these is that they work together. So he can spend them both. And these command tokens, you have to spend them at any point that you could legally spend the command dial. So focus fire, I'll spend when attacking, and I'm going to do that first. Every ship can attack 2 times, but it cannot attack twice out of the same arc. So I can attack once in my forward firing arc, and then once out of a side arc, or maybe once out of a side arc and then once out of a back arc, or once from each side, but not twice out of the front. It's important to note that this range ruler here indicates the type of dice that I can roll. Now my forward arc is 2 red and 1 blue. This is range 1, this is range 2, and range 3, long range. Right? At long range, I can't roll blue dice. So this attack is best at range 2 or closer. So just the Star Destroyer is not quite within range 2. So that's kind of a bummer. So if I were attacking him, I'd only roll the 2 red dice. However, I can make up for that with my Squadron action, which will give me an extra red die, and my Squadron token, which would give me a reroll. So that's useful. I can also attack the side arc. Now I don't have the Star Destroyer there, but I can attack squadrons. Now the Corvette's anti-squadron is a blue die. So he only gets to roll 1 blue die, but he can do it at up to medium range. Now when you attack a squadron, you attack every single squadron in your arc. So let's see. No. But he would be able to get these 3 out of a side arc. So he could attack all 3 of those with 1 blue die each, and he rolls it separately. This guy's just out. So I think what the first thing he'll do is he'll attack the Star Destroyer at long range. And he'll roll 2 red dice, but he'll spend his action to add a 3rd red die. And he also has the ability to re-roll one of these. So I rolled an accuracy symbol, which isn't damage, but it does let me to pick one of these that cannot be used. Well, and that's one of the Star Destroyer's defense tokens that can't be used. And he's got 2 redirects and 1 brace. And then I'm going to spend my reroll here. And I got a 2nd accuracy, so basically no damage. And it doesn't. So now the accuracy doesn't matter. Basically what accuracy would do is it would let me... Here, I'll show you. The Star Destroyer has these 3 tokens. For each accuracy symbol I roll, I can pick 1 that he cannot use for this attack. Being that he has 2 of the redirects, which would let him redirect as much damage from this attack as I want to a different shield section, I could say you can't use either of those because I got 2 accuracy symbols. The brace lets me reduce the damage by half, rounded up. So they're both good for different reasons. But in this particular attack, it was pointless because I rolled no damage. And then for my second attack, I will go out the side arc here, and I'll use my anti-squadron, which on the card here is this symbol, and it means 1 blue die. And that can be out of any arc. So I get these 3, and I get 1 blue die each on this TIE fighter. First attack, that's 1 damage, and the TIE doesn't get to evade it, there's no defense dice. Second one will be this guy, that's 1 damage. And then the third one, this guy is an accuracy, so it's nothing. So we got 2 damage on the TIE fighters, that's not bad. I spent my token, and I spent my dial, so then the last thing is movement. My speed is still 4. So let's figure out where I'm going to go. So this ship is going to bump, because I have to go 4. And that would put me directly on top of the Star Destroyer. Now you can't bump like you do in some other games, where you just touch. What happens if there's going to be, basically you can do ramming damage here. So I would go to the 4, I can't do that, so then if it's going to overlap, you reduce the speed by 1 temporarily. And then see if you can do that. Well, the 3 still has me ramming. The 2 doesn't have me ramming. So I basically do the farthest forward maneuver that I can. Oh, I'm sorry, hold on, I screwed this up. This guy has to go straight. Okay, either way they're all bumping. So do the farthest forward maneuver that I can, even if that has me standing still. I can never overlap. And then we each take a damage card. Now the damage cards are kind of like X-Wing, if you've ever played X-Wing. These are damage cards, and these go straight against your hull value. With on the Star Destroyer it's 8, on the Corvette it's only 4. These bypass shields when you have to deal one directly. And so once you have a certain number of damage cards that meets or exceeds your hull value, your ship is destroyed. If you get a critical hit, these also can be flipped up, and they have extra text on them. So he rammed, but had to back up, so he's not overlapping. And for example, if the Star Destroyer were to collide with him, he would just back up, and basically there'd never be overlapping. You just reduce your speed by 1 temporarily until you are no longer overlapping. And then, but your speed stays the same for the following turn. Okay, so the Corvette is done. The Star Destroyer will start his activation. And he flips over the navigate command. So that is going to let him adjust his speed by 1 and add 1 extra yaw as well. But he's not moving yet, so I'll keep this until he moves. The first thing he's going to do is attack out of his forward arc. He obviously has this guy in range. And he gets 3 red dice and 3 blue dice. Now, unfortunately, that's the only attack he'll be able to get because his side arc has nobody in the line of sight, and his rear arc definitely doesn't. So he's only going to be able to attack once, but that's where you want it. That's 6 dice against the forward arc of here. I could choose to try to see if I could get line of sight to a different arc, and each of these ships has a little yellow dot on each of their arcs, and I have to draw a line between the two to make sure it doesn't cross any of the other arcs to do it. Or basically you can just eyeball it for the simplest way, but to be technical, there are little yellow dots you use. So, let's see, I got 3 accuracies, 1 critical, and 2 damage. So the criticals count as a damage, but it also applies the critical effect. And it's different than it is in other games. The default critical action means if you deal any damage to this guy, the first damage card is dealt face up. Doesn't matter how many crits you deal, it's always that exact same thing, and you can only do 1 critical ability. There are some cards that will basically substitute that for something else, but the default is that it's basically 3 damage. The first card that's dealt to him will be face up. Being that I got 3 accuracy, I will choose all 3 of his abilities here. He has 2 evades, which evades basically depend on range. So at range 1 they do nothing. At range 2 they can make you re-roll 1 die, and at range 3 they can completely cancel a die. But you can't use any of those, so he's going to take 3 damage to his forward, but he's got 2 shields. I'll mark 1, 2, and then he'll take a face-up damage card. And he got structural damage. Deal 1 face-down damage to this card, and then flip this face down. So that was basically like a critical hit. So that's the only attack, but now it's time for me to move. Now I did reveal a movement command, so I'm going to adjust my movement to 1. And so normally, 1 I can only click this once, but now I can click it 2 times. So I can go basically that way, which would probably have me bump him. Or maybe I'll go this way. Now, it can be pretty tricky. You're allowed to move the movement template extra times just to make it to where it doesn't block stuff. Unfortunately, that looks like I would bump there as well. So I'm going to get to go nowhere. Because either way, let's see. Yeah, if I do that, I'll definitely be bumping him. So any way I go right now, I'm going to bump and hit that Corvette. So we'll each take 1 more damage. Now, the Corvette now has 4 damage cards. And has a hull value of 4, so he's actually destroyed. So that's pretty beneficial. That works out perfectly for the Imperial player. And so we place his token on his card, and now it goes to the Nebulon. The Nebulon will reveal a focus fire option, and he is at range 3. Now when we're measuring range, we go closest point to closest point to make sure that the bases still touch. The yellow dots are not for range, they're just for line of sight. So we are definitely in range 3, which is only red dice, but that's fine because this guy attacks with 3 red dice. And I revealed the focus firepower option. Actually, before I attack, I'm going to spend this Squadron command to activate 1 Squadron, and that will allow it to both move and attack. And it has to be within range, close or medium range, so range 1 or 2, and that they're all definitely there. So I'll activate this guy. He's got a maximum speed of 3. So I will lay this down. I don't know, I want to go that way, or I want to go this way. Yeah, he's going to go this way. He's going to fly right up onto those TIE fighters. He's just about at the edge of his range. And he also gets to attack one of them. Now, this is an important piece right here, because any 2 squadrons, or I should say anytime your squadron is at an enemy squadron's distance of 1, so anytime opposing squadrons who are within range 1 of each other, they're considered to be engaged. So when a squadron is engaged, it cannot move at all. It also has to attack only squadrons. Basically, if he wanted to attack the Star Destroyer, he can't until he's dealt with these TIE fighters first, because they're all up in his business. These Star Destroyer and these TIE fighters, for example, can now not go over here. They are stuck trying to shoot him. So, being that he got the Squadron command, he moved. He also gets to shoot. He's going to shoot this near the closest TIE fighter. He gets 4 blue dice, and being that the core set only comes with 3, I'll have to re-roll 1. So that's a hit and 2 of those, which don't do anything. And then I got that. Okay, so basically 1 damage. It's also important to note that squadrons, if they deal a crit, it's ignored. It's treated like a miss. And if somebody deals a crit to a squadron, it's treated like a miss. However, in the case of an X-Wing, if he is attacking a ship, he has the bomber ability, and it basically allows crits to work like normal crits. But that's the bomber keyboard is the only exception to that. In every other case, crits are ignored, whether it's to or from a squadron. So the X-Wing is done. Now we're going to do our attacks. It's important to know that after he moved here, these two squadrons are both engaged with him, and he is now engaged with both of them. So none of these guys can move. And tactically, that's good, because now he doesn't have to worry about as many TIE fighters coming after him at the end of the turn. So the first thing he'll do is he'll take his first shot, which will be range 3 on the Star Destroyer. He gets 3 red dice, and he'll spend his attack focus fire ability to add 1. So I'll just have to re-roll 1. So I have 2 hits and a focus. Not a focus, I'm sorry. I'm thinking X-Wing. 2 hits and an accuracy. And I'll remember that accuracy, and I'll roll 1 more, and it was blank. Okay. So we'll spend the accuracy on the brace for impact. So he can't half the damage. So he's got to take 2 damage. Now the Star Destroyer has brace, which he now can't use. He has 2 redirects, so he'll spend 1 of his redirects, flipping it over to the orange side, to redirect both of those 2 damage to this far side here, because he figures that side might not take that much damage. But you can't do like 1 and 1. You have to send it all just to one side. So, and he could attack again, but there's nothing else for him to attack. It's range 2, or is there? No, these guys are just out of range. Okay, so now he will move. His speed is still 2, and at speed 2 he can do each of these once. And he'll go there. Now, one thing that I haven't mentioned yet, because it hasn't come up, is that I told you that these ships can never overlap each other. A ship can overlap squadrons. And what if that happens, basically all the squadrons are just pushed out of the way. But the tactical thing about this is, if I bump a squadron, my opponent gets to decide where all the squadrons go. And that's really important, because you could maybe put them on the far sides of the ship, and now they're not engaged anymore. Or maybe you clump them all together. You can put them at a place that's more, to one advantage or the other. Alright, so he moved. He's done. It'll go to the Imperial player, who can now activate some squadrons. He'll activate these this tie first to attack the X-Wing, and he gets 3 blue dice. And so he rolled 2 hits and a crit. Now the crit won't work, but because of the swarm keyword, if his X-Wing is engaged with more than 1 TIE fighter, I get to re-roll. So I'll re-roll the crit, and it makes it 3 hits. So I'll adjust him from 5 down to 2. Try and put him back there. And next and I'll activate him. So he is gone, and this other TIE fighter also gets 3 dice. And he got 1 hit, 1 crit, and 1 accuracy, and the crit and the accuracy are both worthless here, so I'll spend my 1 reroll, and it makes it 2 damage, which actually kills this X-Wing. So we pick him up, take him off the board. So they rolled pretty well. Now it's time for the Rebel player. He'll go 1. And 2. The Imperial player has range 1 right here, so this guy will attack that X-Wing. 3 dice. I don't get the re-roll, but it's okay because I rolled 3 hits. So this guy will go down to 2 life. And I love that this game has the life counters right on there, so I don't have to stack any tokens. And this guy will move, because he's out of range. Close. He'll move right there to tie both of them up. And then this last X-Wing. I'm going to move up here to try and join the action. And then my last two TIE fighters. We'll go there and there. And I didn't measure these because they're obviously within range for me, because I have this whole range and I only moved them about half of that. So when it's obvious, you don't have to measure. Although in a tournament setting, they may disagree, but if it's very obvious, there's no point in measuring. All right, so that's the end of the turn. We'll move to round 3. And this will probably be the last round I demo for you, because it looks like the Imperial player is going to win, but a lot of that can be dice related. So we'll do our dials again. Set that to shields, put it on the bottom. Of course, I wouldn't tell my opponent. Also, any of these defensive actions that we've taken that are flipped over, go back to green at the beginning of the turn. Okay. So Rebel player has the first option. And this guy, this Nebulon B, actually I'm glad I'm doing this, he's got a really interesting ability here. He's got 2 blue dice for his anti-squadron. So he can actually roll, instead of just the 1 blue like most ships have, he has 2 blue dice. And he can hit every tie over here out of his side arc, and then he can hit these 2 ties out of his front arc. He could go for the Star Destroyer, but he's going to try to hit all the ties. So his first attack, his first thing he's going to do is an engineering action, which he will take a token for because he hasn't taken damage yet. So he takes the token for that, store it for later. Now he'll do his side shots over here. And I just measured all 4 of these guys are, so we'll do it here first. 2 blue, 1 hit, 1 damage. This guy, 1 damage, and a crit, but we ignore the crit because there's a squadron involved. Here, nothing, and then here, 2 damage, that kills him. So, not bad, he eliminated 1 tie. Then he'll do his forward arc, using the same 2 dice. We'll go for this guy first, who's at 2. 1 damage, so that brings him down to 1. And then this guy, 3 health, and he does 1 damage, brings him down to 2. So he did a lot of damage, not bad. And now he'll move. His movement is still 2. And so what would be great is if he could get out of the front arc of the Star Destroyer. He gets to move each of these 1. But I don't think he's going to be able to. So he'll go here, which is going to bump that TIE Fighter squadron, but not the one on the other side. And then the Imperial player chooses to put it right there. Yeah, because we're going to go for his side arc, so. Alright, the Imperial player activates first, and he's got a focus fire. And from his front arc, he can hit the side arc of this frigate. So he's going to roll 3 red dice and 3 blue dice. And he'll spend his focus fire to add an extra red die. So this one was blank, so I'm going to pretend that's my 4th. Okay. So we got 3 crits, but again, crits don't really matter as long you only need 1. Anything more than that's just overkill. It doesn't do anything. We did get 2 accuracies, so I will. The Nebulon has an evade and 2 brace for impacts. Evade doesn't do anything at range 1, so I'll cancel his 2 braces. So he'll have to take 3 damage. So 1 will go to this shield. And I'll take 2 damage cards, the first of which will be dealt face up. So he gets a shield failure. Your opponent may choose up to 2 of your hull zones. Each of those chosen hull zones lose 1 shield, then flip this card face down. Ouch. I'll take the front and the back. Okay. And now it goes to the, that's all the ships. So now we'll activate squadrons. Imperial or Rebel player goes first. He's going to activate this X-Wing squadron. And have him attack this TIE fighter with 2. He gets 4 blue dice. I'll re-roll the crit. And that kills that TIE fighter. Okay. And I'm not really re-rolling anything, I just only have 3 dice, so I picked one to re-roll to simulate the 4th die. And then the second one will be this is a tough one. This X-Wing here will attack this TIE fighter who's got 2. He rolls 3 hits, so I don't even have to simulate the 4th roll, that kills him. So the X-Wings are doing alright. The Rebel player stands a chance of getting these X-Wings to make a bombing run on the Star Destroyer. Alright, now the Imperial player will activate these 2 TIE fighters. He'll take a shot on here now. He rolls 3 against another squadron, but he only rolls 1 against a capital ship, or a ship. Crit, but it doesn't matter because these guys, the squadrons can't roll crits. And then this next one, here, he'll activate, same thing, 1 damage. And brace wouldn't do anything, because you can spend these against squadrons. We have 2 braces and an evade. Now the evade won't do anything at range 1, but the braces can half the damage, but being that it's rounded up, half of 1 is pointless, so we'll just have to take 1 more damage. And being that our shields are down there, we'll take another damage card. We're at 3 damage cards now, and we have Paul with 5, so this guy is going to die soon. And then our last X-Wing right here is out of attack range, so he will fly right about there, and he's just hoping to get in the way of the Star Destroyer. Okay, so that's basically the game, and hopefully I covered all of the stuff you might need to know in order to play. One thing to keep in mind is Star Destroyers are pretty hard to turn, and usually you'll use a much bigger playing area than this, but you know, the best, if you can get behind them, they only have 1 shield max in their back rear arc, which is great. But I think hopefully I covered the engagements. So the reason this X-Wing was able to move is because he wasn't within range 1 of another squadron. Hopefully I covered the different tokens and what they do. There is actually another token called Scatter, and this is what that looks like. And when you use this one, it cancels all die rolls. And Howl Runner, for example, has this. There are named squadrons, and they have special abilities, and they also have this guy, Howl Runner, down here at the bottom. She has Scatter and Brace. So, and there's also a Luke Skywalker that has other abilities too, and Luke Skywalker has, I believe, 2 braces. So, I don't have them in front of me right now. So there are named ones that you can use, and I've actually had her in this game, and so the base looks different. So here's the base for a normal TIE fighter. Here's the base for Howl Runner. So you've got her face on there, so that's how you tell which is which. So that's the game. Hopefully it was helpful. If not, if I missed anything, ask some questions, and the next time I do one of these, it'll involve some of the scenario cards and the objective cards. We'll probably also do some of the asteroids and debris fields and some of the obstacles that'll be on the map as well. So thanks for watching, and if you liked the video, like it, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys later.